I wanted to talk about some thoughts that I had that came to my mind in regards to the Trump town hall that CNN hosted a few days ago. I had some thoughts more so from the perspective of CNN and why they did what they did, and some of the responses and blowback that CNN has gotten since the town hall. CNN has gotten a lot of outrage and pushback for hosting this town hall, platforming Trump, and a lot of the things that Trump said angered a lot of people. It was something that, for a lot of people, was a needless thing. It was something, it was a cash grab, it was a ratings ploy. And for a lot of people, this was, a total and utter disastrous failure. So I want to talk more so and gear this more towards CNN, their motivations, some of the responses for the CEO of CNN, and internally the responses to the blowback, to the pushback that people have been giving CNN since the town hall. Before I get into that, like I said, I'm not going to get into the into the nitty gritty of everything that Donald Trump said, because, quite honest, if you've heard Donald Trump in the last 7, 8 years, his rhetoric hasn't changed. He is going to stick and sort of go on to a particular bullet points. He's going to stay on those particular bullet points. He has a type of rhetoric style. He's not changing. He's going to go on and talk about how he actually won the election. He's going to go on and talk about how he had the greatest economy that has ever existed in American history, and that, Joe Biden is, doing everything wrong, and vote for me because I'll do everything right. He doesn't answer questions directly. He will bull over anyone that is interviewing him. He'll obfuscate and avoid answering questions. He'll go off on tangents. It takes constant reeling in. And then when you try to reel him in, he'll interrupt. And so, it's pointless. It's pointless at this point in going over and debunking. If you're looking for a deep debunk, there are plenty of internet browsers and different internet searches. You can go on PolitiFact, you can go on CNN, they had their own fact checking. You can go on any one of these other fact checking platforms and fact check all of the information that Donald Trump expressed during that town hall. So my interest is not getting into the nitty gritty, into what Donald Trump said, beat for beat, live reacting. Now, there are a few things that I do want to go over that I did find interesting. And I'm going to go over those things, just to kind of give an overview to anyone that hadn't seen this town hall and why people were so critical of CNN for hosting it. I'm going to just go over some bullet points as to what Donald Trump said and what was discussed during this town hall. So the town hall started with Donald Trump talking about how the election was rigged and calling it a shame. He talked about the January 6th riots. He referred to it as it was a beautiful day. He talked about Mike Pence. He still, criticized Mike Pence for not overturning the election. He continued to lie and talk about how there's credible people that have attested to the fact that the election was stolen. And he continued on with the whole like the election was rigged, I was cheated. I actually won the election. And even as the person hosting the town hall, I think her name Caitlin Collins, he continued on doing what Donald Trump does, where he continues to, bull over and, continues to lie shamelessly about the election being stolen and how he actually won the election and that ballots were being thrown out, Trump ballots. He mentioned Detroit. He mentioned Philadelphia. He mentioned Atlanta being places where there was rampant voter fraud. Now, of course, we know, there are certainly racial implications. Obviously, cities that are, minority, a heavy presence of minorities in these cities. But of course, unfounded. I think there was something like 60 court cases that have gone to in front of judges, and there have been no credible accounts of voter fraud. This has been investigated over and over again. This has been investigated by Republican and like bipartisan watchdogs to investigate these allegations, and nothing. So then, it's not stopping anything. It's not stopping Donald Trump from continuing to perpetrate these lies, and we see the results of that with 60% of the Republican Party believing that Donald Trump actually won the election. Would 60% of the Republican Party believe that Donald Trump won the election if Donald Trump hadn't been on every single platform on Truth Social and all over whenever you get a microphone in front of his face saying that he actually won the election and that it was rigged in Joe Biden's favor? Would 60% of the Republican Party believe these lies, these outright and utter fiction? I mean, it's a lie. So, it's one of those things where I can't even fault Caitlin Collins too much. This was a situation in which she was put in. It was an unwinnable situation, right? So she is going to, no matter what, because Trump is an expert at bullying over anyone who's interviewing him, anyone asking questions, and any difficult questions that are asked are perceived by him and his audience as being attacked or being unfairly asked questions. So anything that isn't a puff piece or that makes paints Donald Trump in the best light is usually met with that this idea that the moderator is biased, or they're actually like a liberal or a communist or an anti-American or whatever it is. So that right there, starting off the town hall with the rigged election claims and Donald Trump, then now continuing to, no matter how many times these things get debunked, continuing this rhetoric and being able to run again for president, all the while perpetuating an outright bull-faced lie, is ultimately, eroding at our democracy. So he goes on, he talks about E. Jean Carroll, the woman that, civilly sued him, in which, he referred to it as a fake story. He referred to her as a whack job. Pretty standard boilerplate stuff. That was around the time where the audience laughed and jeered and snickered and, it was gross. I mean, he had been found liable, he had been found guilty just the day prior, and he was liable for $5 million settlement. And he went on and talked about how he didn't even know this woman, and then continued on about how this woman is a not his type. Basically, giving the argument that she's ugly, so I couldn't have possibly sexually assaulted her. She's ugly. She's not my type. She's old and ugly. There's no way. Look at me. Look how hot I am. Why would I sexually assault someone that looks like her? So, really, really disgusting stuff. Of course, the mainstream media, a lot of that has been focused on him calling Caitlin Collins a nasty person. I mean, again, pretty standard stuff from Donald Trump. Any woman that he's going to come into contact with that is going to give him any pushback, he's going to refer to them as, in any form or fashion, he's going to refer to them as a nasty person, or you're a nasty woman. I mean, he referred to Hillary Clinton as such. It's pretty standard, Donald Trump rhetoric. It got a rousing applause and laughter from the audience. So he complimented Vladimir Putin. He called Vladimir Putin a smart guy, and refused to side, like openly side with Ukraine. Now, this I found interesting, but not surprising. There has been, from just everything that has been put out, there's been a push from the far right in pulling support. So refusing to intervene by selling weapons to Ukraine to defend Ukraine from an unjustified invasion from Russia. There's been a push from the far right, from people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, to Matt Gaetz, to all these other like Republican and GOP politicians that have talked about not wanting to help Ukraine as as a NATO member, as being the biggest NATO member, not wanting to sell arms to Ukraine to help defend Ukraine against Russia. Now, of course, there is motivation for that, I think, from the far right. The far right is looking at it from a vantage point where Russia is a far right government. Russia is a conservative government. The Russian government has talked openly about degeneracy, and has talked about the LGBTQ basically doing their own culture war, wokeness. All of this degeneracy is coming from the West, and we're going to crack down, and we're going to be great again if we crack down on this degeneracy. So Russia has been engaging in this type of rhetoric for a while now, and they have. It's definitely not a liberal democracy. It's an autocratic, far right government. The Russian government, and Vladimir Putin more specifically, he's an autocrat, right? So I do think that the push from the Republican Party towards more fascistic forms of governance and more support for like authoritarian leaders. I could see how Vladimir Putin, it can be looked at as like a strong leader, and that why can't we have a strong leader like Vladimir Putin here in the United States? So it's not surprising that Donald Trump, I don't believe it's this idea that Donald Trump is in the pocket of Vladimir Putin or Russia. But I do think there is, sort of like an admiration of sorts no different than the admiration that you would have seen between Benito Mussolini in the 1940s and, well, more the 1930s and Adolf Hitler, right? Where there was like a kind of like this mutual respect between the two. Dictators and wannabe dictators, authoritarians and wannabe authoritarians love one another and they support one another. This whole Ukraine Russia conflict is unambiguously, a situation where Ukraine is in the right and Russia is in the wrong. And anything that Ukraine does in like service of pushing Russia out is, I think, justified, because it was unjustifiable what Russia did, invading Ukraine, a sovereign nation, and attempting to conquer Ukraine and kill Zelensky and implement their own Russian puppet. So, of course, there's no surprise. And this is why I'm hoping and I'm praying that, Zelensky and Ukraine can win this war soon. Of course, it's a battle, it's a challenge. But I could see right now with the far right, and even unfortunately, a lot of like anti-American leftists have also done the both sides thing and have defended Russia and Vladimir Putin's war of aggression explicitly, or in a lot of cases implicitly. So, I mean, this whole conflict has been a disappointment, I think, from someone who I consider myself to be a lefty, someone who is anti-war, anti-interventionist. I do find it disgusting that, certain people that I would consider to be my comrades defending what Russia has done, just doing the both sides thing in regards to Russia and Ukraine, when it's unambiguously Russia in the wrong for invading Ukraine. So, I hope and I pray Zelensky is able to, and the Ukrainians are able to push out the Russians before, because it's an inevitability, whether, 2024 we get a Republican president, or, we get a Senate controlled by Republicans, or a House controlled even more by Republicans, where the weapons and, the different things that are helping Ukraine stave off Russian advancement is going to like dry up. Because again, there is certainly for the far right in this country an incentive for as many far right governments to stay in power around the world, in the same way that a lot of leftists, will, shit on the CIA for overthrowing left-leaning governments and socialist governments around the world. It's pretty cool to have Lula, a socialist who wins in Brazil after a fascist, took power, right? So it always feels good when you're, you have a political ideology, and that political ideology is being represented in another country. So, he also goes on and he talks about the classified documents. Now, of course, if you were expecting any sort of apology or any sort of explanation outside of just, well, whatever, I can do whatever I want, then you were naive or sorely mistaken. So he goes on and he talks about that, he maybe like, did you show these documents to anyone, these classified documents, the documents that were seized by the FBI at Mar-a-Lago in a raid. And, these classified documents obviously being important enough to where, the FBI was willing to raid a former president's residence to retrieve these documents. He says, quote, he had every right to do it. He denied, like kind of like haphazardly in the background, he denied that he showed these documents, but he kind of did it like in a halfway, like, well, I don't know. I guess maybe I did. But, if I had every right to do it. Right. So again, I don't know what anyone would have expected there. He talked about, the defaulting on our debt, on the if the Republicans were not able to get the debt ceiling deal, which I'm not an economist, but defaulting on our debt would be catastrophic. Even someone who is as ignorant as I am in economics would know that, defaulting on our debt would not only collapse our economy, but it would collapse the world economy, and it would lower the value of the American dollar in international trade. It would be disastrous. But, Trump just casually brings that out there and says it. I would love for all of these like right-wing libertarian types to defend any of this. The Ben Shapiro types, I would love for them to defend Donald Trump getting up there and talking casually about, essentially setting off a nuke for like the economy, like an economic nuke. So one of the other things he mentioned was, the inclined, he said, quote, he would be inclined to pardon some of the January 6 rioters, which I think for me and for a lot of people, this was, where the bulk of the outrage into like platforming Donald Trump and hosting this town hall was that he continued repeatedly in justifying and continuing the 2020 election lies, but justifying January 6th. Right? Now, you have to understand from like a vantage point, we're so numb to it because we're living through it right now. Could you imagine looking at another country and you have a world like like a national leader, like a president, a prime minister, who pushes a lie and continues to push a lie that they actually won an election that they lost, and that it had been investigated over and over and over again, and multiple court cases have come out, and they're continuing to spread their lies, continuing to erode at our democracy. Because again, a democracy in general is only as good as the people who are operating within it and how good of faith they're operating within it. And if you're not operating in good faith and you have the power that a former world leader or a former national leader has, like, you can really do damage to a democracy. You don't think that this can damage when you have tens of millions of Americans right now believing that Donald Trump actually won this election with no evidence or no proof, and with constant debunking of claims, this debunking not mattering one way or the other? It's problematic. It's really bad. The first Capitol attack, the attack on the Capitol since the Civil War, this is something that doesn't happen every day. And you have a world like a president, a former president, going up there and talking about, hey guys, this attack on the Capitol, in which many dozens of people have breached the Capitol in an attempt to overturn the election, in an attempt to implement, to put in Donald Trump as the rightful president is like, it's mind-boggling, right? That he is willing to pardon these people, the people that stormed the Capitol, that were punished and prosecuted. Yeah, I'll pardon you for what you did. Is absolutely disgusting. You know? Listen, we know he's racist and we know he's a misogynist. These things are not like new to me, or they shouldn't be new to anyone else. He's been saying things like this, the nasty person, referring to mostly women that talk to him or interview him. You know, the whole like, whack job with a sexual assault, victim, right? With him being the perpetrator. These things are pretty standard course for someone who is as morally bankrupt and disgusting as this guy. However, the thing that offended me the most were the election lies of 2020 and the pardon, the talks of pardoning the people that were trying to overturn our democracy. And what terrible precedents this would set towards just going forward with politicians losing elections, mostly Republican politicians, not conceding, refusing to concede, and just outwardly lying and getting their supporters to overthrow the elected official to implement the person that they want implemented. That's where democracies go to die. And that's stuff that happens in other countries with weak democracies. In authoritarian countries, you see things like this. Coups and attempted coups. That was an attempted coup. And that shouldn't be taken lightly. The Democrats did a poor job of getting at the root of, what caused and the January 6th and the folks responsible, all of the ants and the peasants and the dregs, the people that were storming the building, those people got punished. But, the people that were responsible, the politicians that talked openly about pardoning, people if they decided to do what they needed to do to, get what they wanted to get. Like the defense of the people trying to overturn our democracy, trying to implement the person to implement Donald Trump into the presidency. All of these people were left alone and continued to serve, none of them being charged with sedition. Donald Trump still hasn't been charged with sedition. And he gets to run again and continue to do the same thing. And just completely subvert our democracy. He talked about, and this is something he mentioned before. I don't remember if he mentioned it on Truth Social. I don't remember if he talked about any of this when he was, on the debate stage or at one of his rallies. I don't remember exactly about suspending the Constitution. I do remember him making a comment or it being reported on at the time. But he was asked about it. And, again, he gave an evasive answer that actually he is supporting the Constitution because the election was rigged and people didn't do the right thing in having him as the president of the United States being rightfully coronated, and that he was, cheated out of the election and so forth. So it was absolutely gross. It was absolutely disgusting. CNN should be ashamed of themselves. I'm going to get into them in a moment. I'm going to get into CNN. I'm going to get into their motivations as to what they're doing and why what they're doing isn't going to work. It's not going to work. They have clear motivations and it's just not going to happen. But the last thing that Trump said that I thought was interesting, right? Just to put a bow on the actual content of the town hall. I thought it was interesting that Donald Trump talked about, the abortion issue came up, and he was just outwardly asked, like just like overtly asked, "Hey, do you plan to ban abortion federally if you were to become president?" And he wouldn't answer it. He wouldn't answer it, and I thought it was very, very telling. So a lot of people say the underperformance of the GOP was during the 2022, midterm elections were based off of backlash associated with the overturn of Roe v. Wade. Which I would agree. I would agree. I think, or no, I'm sorry. So like a lot of people said it was it was backlash to the trans culture war stuff. Sorry. So in that instance, I would say the trans culture war stuff. I do think plays a role when it comes to like everyday average voters that may be like moderate Republicans or like people that are like they're independents that lean Republican. I don't know how much that galvanizes them to go to the voting booth. But I think the biggest backlash in 2022 and the biggest indictment as to the Republican agenda and why the Republicans and conservatives did so poorly in the midterms was the overturn of Roe v. Wade. I think that was like a massive, massive backlash, right? So by Trump being asked outwardly and directly in front of an audience of his supporters, hey, do you plan on banning abortion federally if you become president? And he refuses to answer that and says did a wonderful job overturning Roe v. Wade, but refuses to answer that direct question, tells me that even Trump in his crazy, demented delusions, that he knows better to come out and talk about an abortion ban. Now, of course, for the everyday average voter, it's important to understand that these people are dishonest. They want an abortion ban, but they're not going to outwardly say that that's what they're going to advocate for because they know it's one of those issues that is a losing issue. Even amongst Republican voters, it's still a very contentious topic, abortion. Right? Like, Democrats, it's more so like, definitely more of a pro-choice type of like perspective, right? But when it comes to like abortion bans and like, abortion bans where they follow, it usually means that you're going to be punished. There's like jail time. You can face legal consequences for getting an abortion or whatever it is, right? All of these implications that that makes it even contentious amongst Republican voters. Because I'm pretty sure like some of the latest polling on abortion and the whole like should abortion be banned, I'm pretty sure it's almost like a 50-50 debate like amongst Republican voters, let alone like Democrats and like independents. So this whole idea of like, we're going to hitch our wagon to like, the whole abortion issue is a losing issue. So Trump not like sidestepping the question, I thought was very funny and very interesting. I would love for them to continue to, take the mask off and really express what they want and what they're advocating for. I would love that. But, they're not going to do it. And they know better than that. Because, again, that is a losing battle. You come out, you talk about banning abortion, it's a losing battle. And we saw this in 2022. Now, back to CNN. So CNN has been levied with criticism in regards to irresponsible platforming. That's been one of the criticisms. It was irresponsible to platform Donald Trump. It was irresponsible platforming. Now, of course, and I'm going to get into this, I'm going to react to this. Anderson Cooper goes on and talks about how, hey guys, it's about listening to the other side. It's about getting outside of your bubble, right? And that's what we're here to do, is to present like both sides and to present, Donald Trump because he's the Republican frontrunner. So I believe, and this is something that, certain people may disagree with, I do believe that anyone can be platformed in certain situations. Everyone could be platformed. Neo-Nazis can be platformed. Some of the worst people, can be platformed. Serial killers can be platformed. Rapists can be platformed. Pedophiles can be platformed. But the ways in which you platform people are very important. So it's responsible platforming is what I advocate for. Every time, all the time, responsible platforming. So what I mean by responsible platforming is I think that a news organization has a level of trust, like a major news network has a level of trust that they've cultivated with their audience, and that trust should not be taken lightly. So what I mean by responsible platforming, or more so irresponsible platforming, is platforming someone expressing lies and harmful rhetoric with minimal pushback in a format in which they look rhetorically good. Right? So if you bring on, let's say, Richard Spencer or Nick Fuentes to have a conversation on CNN, I then wouldn't expect you to like have a group of groypers in the crowd, yelling and cheering at everything that they talk about. Whether it's racial IQ, race realism, the Jewish question, all of these things that are demonstrably untrue, harmful views, bigoted, disgusting views, and presenting it as if there's legitimacy, because not only is it being hosted on CNN, it's being hosted in a formal format, right? Which is a town hall. That's about as formal as you can get, with a group of supporters in the crowd. It's problematic, right? I think like any platform should get pushback for that. Even if you have someone there moderating that is trying to ask questions or trying to keep that, Richard Spencer on track, it's irresponsible. I can make the argument that CNN and the mainstream media did a great job at giving the alt-right, a boost, right? By not calling it what it was, by trying to do the liberal civility politics. You let neo-Nazis gain prominence within like our like government system. You gave them like the PR boost. You covered these guys and didn't call them out for what it is. You call them by their preferred pronoun. You call them like alt-right, which they're neo-Nazis. But that's what you did. And I can't put into words like, the detriment that can do towards like the truth, and like, which you're a news platform, that should really be like your motivation, right? Even if you have people on your platform and like you bring people on and it's like an opinion show or whatever, you should bring people on and challenge ideas that aren't true, things that can be fact checked, like the election was stolen. But CNN didn't do that. So CNN decided that they were going to bring on Trump. They were going to use their platform, CNN, their brand, to bring on Donald Trump and to talk about whatever it is. No questions are off the table. You can ask him anything that you want to ask him. It's a Q&A where fans in the audience, like his voters, by the way, are in the audience and they get to ask him questions, right? And he gets to sidestep questions because he's a master. He's a master at sidestepping questions, not answering questions, bullying over everyone, talking over everyone, and throwing temper tantrums whenever he's asked something he doesn't want to answer, utilizing personal attacks. I'm okay with like talking to Donald Trump and debating Donald Trump, but you have to like embarrass Donald Trump. You have to humiliate Donald Trump because he's not a rhetorical master. Everyone has weaknesses, right? He's not a rhetorical god. His ego is his weakness. So if you're going to platform someone like this, then it has to be something like that. It can't be, I'm going to bring him on and I'm going to give him like obvious softball answers. And while I'm trying to, basically correct him on all of the incorrect things that he said, he has an audience that is booing and jeering and laughing and interrupting. He himself is playing to the crowd because he's a showman. That's irresponsible. And that's what people are upset about. The irresponsible platforming. So, Matt Stelter, a former CNN host, he goes on and he talks about how he reports on the ratings. He reports that the ratings for the town hall beat MSNBC's ratings and Fox News's ratings combined. They were able to pull together 3.1 million viewers, which is some of the highest ratings CNN has gotten in a very long time. So, for a lot of people, and I'm going to get into this, it was a success, including Chris Light, who is the CEO of CNN and the CEO that has given the rebrand that he's hoping for, where he's hoping to, I guess, move CNN more centrist, which, means he's looking at moving CNN more to the right. So, Brian Stelter on Twitter talked about what was reported, like, inside, because CNN wasn't only getting pushback from people outside of, outside the company, like, viewers and other news networks, but they were getting pushback and criticism from internal within CNN. But apparently, the CEO of CNN had an editorial call the morning after the town hall and praised Caitlin Collins for a masterful performance last night. He said he couldn't have been more proud of her. Quote, the whole team in New Hampshire. Then he says he's aware of the backlash and more to come. So he knew what he was doing. He knew this was going to be there was going to be backlash to this, and he didn't care. He didn't care because, again, to a multi-millionaire or a multi-billionaire, being an oligarch, it doesn't matter whether our democracy lives or our democracy dies. It doesn't matter to people like Chris Light, because they know that no matter what, whether fascist authoritarianism takes hold within a country or whether it's a liberal democracy, it's not going to stop them from making any money. Chris Light can sleep at night. I don't think Chris Light is like ideologically a fascist or an authoritarian. He's a whatever lines his pockets, whatever gains an audience, which equals more finance, more profit. So for him, he's clapping. This was a success. This is incredible. We got incredible ratings. We got all-time ratings. We've had the biggest ratings in the last few years. Like, this is incredible. Not caring the implications. 60%, like I said, 60% of Republican voters believe that Donald Trump won the election. And you just legitimized and gave a platform to this guy and legitimized his views by hosting it in that manner, in that way. So, again, these people are like soulless and, they are able to sleep at night. I really do hope there's a hell for people like this. Seriously, because they don't care if any one of us are subjugated, insofar as they continue to make profit. That's it. So Brian Stelter on Twitter, he continues, quote, "You don't have to like the former president's answers, but you can't say that we didn't get them." End quote. Litch tells staffers, many of whom are angry about the town hall, quote, "Caitlin pressed them again and again and made a lot of news. That is our job," end quote. And that's the problem. That's not your job. Your job is not to make news. Your job is to report on the news and to give information, factual information to the people. Your job isn't to create news. And this is the bullshit. This is the commodification of news. Right? This is the privatization and the commodification of news in the 24-hour news cycle. Your priority shouldn't be making news. The best news is dry and it's boring, not sensational. But there's an economic incentive. So he continues, while we may have been uncomfortable, quote, "While we may have been uncomfortable hearing people clapping, that was also an important part of the story," Litch adds, "because those folks represent a large swath of America, and the media screwed up by missing that part of the story in 2015 to 2016. So, incorrect. So, are we surprised? Like, seriously, Trump is not like some hidden figure somewhere that's been canceled. He's still reported on. He still holds rallies. He was holding rallies when he was president. He's been holding rallies. He's not like some hidden person that's in the closet. He's we know. Like, there have been many instances. He's had rallies where he's talked about, certain things and disgusting things, and his audience clap like seals and laugh. So we know what his audience is about. What do you think the whole what do you call it? Not degenerates. What did Hillary Clinton call Trump supporters? I don't remember. But that was that whole thing. We know, right? You can try to justify it and defend it and say, oh, well, hey, it may be uncomfortable hearing people clap, but, that's a part of the story. We know where these people stand. Trump is not an unknown figure. We know. And that they represent a large swath of America? No, they don't. It depends what your definition of large swath. Those people in that audience represent about 1/3 of the American, like the population. About 1/3. Now, yeah, that's nothing to sneeze at. But like, again, this idea that like it's a 50-50 thing drives me crazy, because it's not a 50-50 thing. It's a 1/3 thing. And furthermore, it was CNN and MSNBC, but more specifically CNN, that covered Trump more than Fox in the beginning. So that's a lie. Like this, I'm pretty sure was documented when it came to news coverage back during 2015 into 2016, when Donald Trump officially put his hat in the ring and announced his presidency, that CNN covered him more than Fox. Because you have to remember that early on and during the primaries, it was Marco Rubio or it was the Ted Cruz were the front runners in the Republican Party. That's who they were pushing for. Donald Trump was not like revered as a messiah or like, propped up by Fox News. It wasn't until after he won the election that's when Fox News and all these major conservative news outlets fell in line. Hell, you had Ben Shapiro critiquing Donald Trump for his anti-Semitism. And then it all went away once Donald Trump won. But, it was CNN that gave Trump free publicity. They covered him like crazy because he was great news. He was great television, I should say. All of his segments, all of the, they would play all of his segments. They would play all of his speeches because he was like, wow, he's talking, and people who are running for president don't talk that way. This is great ratings. This is great news. Unintentionally gaining him a support system, not understanding that people generally don't like CNN. A lot of like independents, a lot of people don't like CNN. It's considered a stuffy, like historically, like a stuffy institutional news organization. And that added to a lot of his populist charm. It wasn't like CNN wasn't covering Trump. That's a lie. Of course they were. Trump, it was great television. He continues on to say that, quote, covering Trump is tricky and messy, Light says, and it will continue to be messy and tricky, but it is our job. He confidently says, America was served very well by what we did last night. Many CNN employees strongly disagree. Well, they better keep quiet or else they're going to lose their job. Because there has been a concerted effort in moving the platform further right. So there has been, over the past year, there has been a push from those at the top. So CNN, like you have Chris Light, who's the CEO of CNN. You have like influential board members. One influential board member being billionaire John Malone, who is he's, like I said, he's a conservative. He's a conservative billionaire. And it's been a concerted effort to overhaul the image of the network. Now, historically, CNN has been an institutional, centrist type of organization. CNN was not like some far left news organization. It was not some like, a super lefty type of like media outlet. You had MSNBC, that was more establishment Democrat. So they were like associated with like, you know, the Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden wing of the Democratic Party, you know. Then you had CNN that was somewhere like to the right of MSNBC, but ever so slightly, right? So they were still, you know, on the Overton window, maybe considered a little left leaning, but for the most part, they were pretty centrist in like their coverage of everything. It was always a meme, you know, like, you know, they'll do the both sides thing. And, you know, they were always about trying to be quote unquote fair and balanced. That was their whole shtick. And and Fox News, of course, being a on the right, being a Republican part of like, you know, the discourse. They are affiliated and associated with the Republican Party. As we've seen now that reports of like Tucker Carlson having direct power within the Republican Party, within the GOP. It's pretty crazy, right? So that was always like the makeup of like the three big 24-hour news media companies in the country. So apparently, so let me back up. So before this push, like this rebrand, before the Chris Light taking over as CNN CEO and the Warner Brothers Discovery merger, and before all of that, there was a concerted push, more so, more than MSNBC, more than any of these other news organizations. It was Donald Trump and the Trump administration pretty much bullied CNN. You know, I remember that it was a big thing when he took like press credentials from like 2 CNN reporters because he didn't like the coverage that was being, given to him by CNN and by those reporters. There had been, a concerted effort to attack CNN from like, you know, the Trump administration and conservatives at large. And this idea is that like CNN is more biased and they're a far left organization. They're a left biased organization. Now, everything that criticizes Donald Trump and reports on factual information that Trump and his administration didn't want out was being castigated or being criticized as being far left. Right? So to the everyday average person that saw this, they think that CNN is some far left organization when it's really not. It was further to the right of like MSNBC. And MSNBC is not like a far left organization either. They're like, you know, they're establishment Democrats. They're center left. And CNN was more to the center. They were not like some like center left or even far left organization. So this was used as an excuse to now new leadership is taking over, and for them to, to change things up, to switch things up. So, long story short, there have been critiques of CNN by, the new CEO, by, this John Malone guy who is on the board, this billionaire that talks about, the conservative billionaire that talks about CNN wanting to remake itself, and that the prescription, happens to be that they wanted to get away from like liberal bias, right? Which again, in the minds of like a conservative or a Trump supporter, a liberal bias is reporting on what Donald Trump is doing accurately. That's liberal bias to a conservative. So now we have to do the both sides with every situation, even if something is factually correct. We have to do the both sides. So if like Trump is saying that the election was stolen and 60% of Republicans say the election was stolen. We have to entertain that because, hey guys, that's a liberal bias when you say that the election wasn't stolen. That's a liberal bias. When you say climate change is real, that's a liberal bias. When you say that, like, you know, the vaccines are a good thing to take, that's a liberal bias. Of course, that's stupid. And it's incorrect information. It's false neutrality on issues that there's no neutrality to begin with. So, you know, of course, they've gone on. It's a whole thing. I'm not going to get into it. There's a really, really good article that outlines this in Vox. You know, if you look at why billionaire John Malone's shadow looms over CNN, it was an article by Peter Kafka that was published August 26th of last year. You should take a look at that. I think it really outlines the motivation behind the scenes, what they're trying to do. I think one time John Malone had an interview where he talked about, like, CNN. He wants them to be like fair and balanced, like Fox News, and not have this like liberal bias that they've been, you know, having over the last few years. Right? There are certainly financial ties to this billionaire who is very influential. Chris Light apparently, you know, of course, agrees with all of this information, and their stance to make a lot of money. Their idea and what they're trying to do is they're trying to gain a conservative audience. They're trying to be, basically Fox News Light. They want an audience. CNN has been hemorrhaging viewers. MSNBC doesn't get very good ratings. To be quite honest, Fox News, they had the best of the ratings out of all the cable television news networks. But like ever since they let go of Tucker Carlson, their ratings have dropped. So you start looking around, and CNN is trying to salvage an audience. They're trying to overtake Fox News. So what do, right? You move right. You move further conservative. You start entertaining ideas, and any sort of pushback to these ideas are considered to be you're just a liberal. You're a commie. You have no bias. You have a leftist bias. Right? Any pushback on reality, any pushback on information, right? You're just a liberal. I mean, we see this over and over again. Hell, you go on Twitter right now and you see all of these conservatives, all of these like chuds, these hogs going on about like Caitlin Collins doing the memes like, haha, she got played, haha, like, look at her, look at this liberal getting owned by our guy. She's not a liberal. Caitlin Collins, working at the Daily Caller, a Tucker Carlson publication, she's a Republican. She's a conservative. She's not a liberal. So that's what I'm saying. Anybody that asks questions, anyone that pushes back on factual information, in their eyes are liberal. It's not good. It's a bad precedent, especially for a news organization. So, what does this all mean, right? So you have influential people at CNN trying to pop ratings. They're trying to overtake Fox. They're trying to move further to the right. They're trying to rehabilitate their image. They don't want to be associated as a liberal-leaning news organization. Good luck with that. Like I said, Republican town hall hosting, and she's being memed to death about being some like far left unfair person whenever she corrects them and says that no, the election wasn't stolen. So yeah, good luck in trying to like rebrand to like conservatives, trying to get them to watch CNN. So they popped the rating. There's obviously been pushback. I do think that you're going to see a massive this over the next like year or two. You're going to see a concerted effort in CNN trying to appeal to the right, trying to move their programming to the right, bringing in more right-leaning, news pundits and analysts, and entertaining more ideas. Cutting back on challenging conservative ideas or conservative views, even incorrect ones, because then they don't want to be perceived as being liberal. You're going to see more of that. Now, the problem with that is that it's not going to work, because the people that are like centrist or, maybe a little bit to the left, like establishment types, like older, establishment Dem types that watch CNN in the past, you're going to chase them away because they don't find shit like this entertaining, or like, oh man, like this is incredible. So you're going to eventually turn them away. And then Fox News viewers, you think they're going to move to CNN? CNN would have to move to like OAN or Newsmax on the Overton window. They're not going to move. Like, why would they want Fox News Light when they can get Fox News? Why would they want, conservative, conservative light, when like they're already pissed off at Fox News for not backing Donald Trump more? Donald Trump has been criticizing Fox News more as of late, the last couple years. And as things have moved on, as like Tucker Carlson is fired, the most popular pundit on that news platform, you're going to see more and more of these like conservative boomers moving to OAN and Newsmax. You're going to see growth in those areas. Why would they ever decide to watch CNN? For what? For what? So my question is, where's the audience? I don't see an audience. So we'll see how it all pans out. But I don't see an audience here for this rebrand. And I see like, you may get like a bump, right? I mean, it's like the equivalent of like Jackass, or like the equivalent of like a car crash. You'll get people to come out and see it. But is it sustainable long term? Freak shows, are they sustainable? No. You build sustainability by like news, building trust and reliability in your audience. And what we've seen is that CNN and their new management can't be trusted. They sent out and, they brought out Donald Trump and put him in a platform that he can spew his lies and not get much a pushback. Caitlin Collins, I don't put that much on him, on her, because she was in an unwinnable situation, right? She's young, and she's a woman, and Donald Trump isn't going to respect that. He's going to he bulls over people in his own party. He bulls over people like, older people, older men, people that you think he would respect more. He bulls over everyone. He doesn't answer questions. He runs on tangents. He, will like interrupt. And then you put him in an audience of Trump supporters, giving the illusion that what he's saying is correct, and that the person that is correcting him is just being a hater or having like liberal bias. So absolutely like crazy shit. But again, they're going to continue this. They're going to lose in the meantime, and good luck. to CNN. Now, I'm going to play this clip here, and I'm going to react to it. So this is The Hill, which is it's a publication, and they're going to do a debate. They're going to do a debate on, like, a little, like, debate on, like, you know, the ethics of platforming Donald Trump, whether it was responsible or whether it was irresponsible. And, you know, it's a disservice to democracy. So I'm going to play this, and then we can discuss further.
Fake story and is a whack job.
Hello and welcome to Rising. It's Friday and I'm joined by the lovely Jessica Burbank and Amber Athey today. Now I'm going to be handing over the baton to them for much of the rest of the show, but there's so much going on. I had FOMO. I had to come in. Nice to see both of you.
It's great to be here, Robbie.
Fantastic. All right, go ahead, Amber. Why don't you tee us off?
Absolutely. Viewers are still fuming at CNN over the network's town hall event with former President Donald Trump, with some calling into question CEO Chris Licht's competency as head of the network leading up to the 2024 election. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez hit back at Licht's defense of the town hall as a, quote, newsmaker. She tweeted, "Making news is not the same as covering news. When one wishes to become a participant in events, i.e. making news, they become the story and sacrifice the pretense of a neutral observer. Also, no one got answers. It was 70 minutes of steamrolled propaganda, especially on abortion and sexual assault."
Based.
Moreover, reports say Licht is facing a fury of internal criticism from his own staffers over the event, with one telling the Post, quote, "I can't believe anyone thought this was a good idea."
Host Anderson Cooper addressed the criticism on air last night. Let's watch.
Many of you think CNN shouldn't have given him any platform to speak, and I understand the anger about that, giving him the audience, the time. I get that. But this is what I also get. The man you were so disturbed to see and hear from last night, that man is the front runner for the Republican nomination for president. And according to polling.
So I wanted to talk about that because it is true that he is the front runner right now. And I think he is going to be the Republican nominee in the 2024 election. But it's also important to understand that CNN hosting this town hall right now has nothing to do with the election cycle, because we're not in the election cycle yet. We still, the election cycle didn't happen yet. Like, we're still not there. The primaries are nowhere near right now. So we're technically still in an off season.
No other Republican is even close. That man you were so upset to hear from last night, he may be president of the United States in less than 2 years.
Listen to the smug, just smug, you know, like, hey guys, listen, you know, you have to understand, guys, that other people have other opinions. You have to understand, guys. Listen to how smug that this drips of, like, patronizing, like patronization, like just such patronizing, smug. You know, hey guys, like, you know that, like, you know, hey, you can't keep your head in the sand. Everyone has an opinion. He has an opinion. He's the Republican frontrunner. Come on, guys. You know, let's be adults about this.
That audience that upset you, that's a sampling of about half the country. They are your family members, your neighbors, and they are voting. And many said they're voting for him. Now, maybe you.
So that's false, by the way. That's not true. So his supporters make up about 1/3 of the electorate. No, they're not half the country. They're about 1/3. There's, like, you know, there's actual numbers, Anderson. There's polling. So we have an idea of what type of support that this person has, that Donald Trump has within the country. We're not talking like within the Republican Party, which is about 80, 90, whatever, 90%. We're talking about the entire country, and then within the entire country, we're talking about maybe about 30%, 30 to 35% of the country, not half of the country, not 50% of the country. So that's important to understand. That's a very dishonest. I hear this a lot in terms of support. Hey guys, did you know that Trump is half the country? Trump has half the support of the country? No, he doesn't. To be fair, Biden doesn't have half the support of the country either. But Trump doesn't have half the support of the country. He has about 30% of the country. So obviously that wasn't enough for him to win the election in 2020.
You haven't been paying attention to him since he left office. Maybe you've been enjoying not hearing from him, thinking it can't happen again. Some investigation is going to stop him. Well, it hasn't so far.
Again, what this was done, so the ways in which Anderson Cooper and, of course, this is all coming from the top internally within CNN. The way he's framing this as if hey guys, we're doing a service here. We're doing our journalistic due diligence by propping up election misinformation and undermining our democracy, all for a ratings bump. Because this is what it is. Anderson Cooper is going to lie and tell us that actually this was because we wanted to give everyone an opportunity to hear from the man. What do you mean to hear from the man? He hasn't been canceled. He still posts on Truth Social. He still has his town halls, or not town halls, his rallies. He still has his rallies all around the country. He's not canceled. He's not just completely in the closet. We know where he stands on all of these issues. And all you did for a ratings bump was host someone that continued to undermine our democracy, all the while with an audience in the crowd clapping and cheering along. If Trump supporters are 50% of the country, as Anderson Cooper claims, then why wouldn't you have 50% people that like Donald Trump and 50% that don't like Donald Trump? Why would you then have an audience of 100% of the people in the audience who like Donald Trump and want to vote for Donald Trump, his supporters? Why? Oh, maybe it's because you weren't interested in actual journalism. You were interested in a ratings bump. Don't insult our intelligence. Seriously. CNN, Anderson Cooper, don't insult our intelligence. It's very clear what your motivations were. It was not, to get a ratings, for journalistic integrity. It was a ratings bump.
So if last night showed anything, it showed it can happen again. It is happening again. He hasn't changed, and he is running hard. You have every right to be outraged today and angry and never watch this network again. But do you think staying in your silo and only listening to people you agree with is going to make that person go away?
All in all, the town hall averaged 3.1 million total viewers. The event outrated Fox and MSNBC as expected. But these are not 2015, 2016 level numbers for the network. Not even close.
I thought that was a pretty good, actually, speech from Anderson Cooper there for my standpoint. What he's saying is true. Obviously, Trump is running, is very well, could be the nominee, could be the president again. Pretending he doesn't exist doesn't make him go away. And I think there are plenty of criticisms you can level at the format and the moderation and everything. And Brianna and I argued about that yesterday for.
And that's ultimately where a lot of the criticism is coming from, by the way. Of course, they're going to dishonestly frame this as people who are just melting or a bunch of snowflakes that can't handle a difference of opinion. But again, keep in mind that this isn't the election cycle, and we know where he stands because he's been in office already. And we know, like, he's not silent. We know where he stands. We know where his supporters stand.
Forever. But it seems like the criticism is the decision they made to have this event at all. Like, that's the criticism internally to CNN, and even then some people on the outside, people like AOC saying like it's irresponsible to do the most basic job of journalism and cover the news. What did you think, Jessica?
No, this is not, again, very dishonest framing. No, this was irresponsible because, again, we know where Donald Trump stands on all of these issues. And again, all you did, this had nothing to do with journalistic integrity. That's the way in which they're going to frame this. This had everything to do with a ratings bump. This was not like, oh, hey, guys, we're doing this because we want to do our journalistic due diligence. No. Donald Trump makes good ratings. They wanted a ratings boost. That's it.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I think
God, that stank look on his face. He looks constipated.
most people's criticism from what I saw, which of course is not all of the criticism that's out there, was he had just had this trial with Jean Carroll, and then came on there and made ridiculous statements that I think he could be sued for defamation again based off of what he said. Just his comments were disgusting, and I think that's what people were mad about. And Anderson, I think, to me, came off a little bit patronizing in that speech, because people can...
Not a little bit. Very patronizing. Very smug. You know, just very smug and elitist. And, oh, guys, listen, you can't handle a difference of opinion. Oh, God, like, why don't you get out of your bubble, guys? Why don't you understand that not everyone agrees with you, guys? Thanks, Anderson. I didn't know that. I didn't know like what Trump supporters believed, and I didn't know what Trump believed. I had no idea. So, you know, now that I'm hearing this, oh man, you know, I guess you're right.
Have criticisms about what Donald Trump had a platform to say, especially when it comes to his comments about women. I mean, I think it was disgusting. But the point he makes about Donald Trump's support, calling it like half of the country, he's pretty high on favorability ratings, and his polling doesn't show that he has half of the country. Most of the polling is specific to likely voters, which is at best about 64% of the country. And within that group, he still has a pretty high unfavorability rating of about 51.4%. So I don't know if it's accurate to say that Trump supporters are half of the country.
Well, but among voters, those are the ones who...
Look at that look on his face. Oh, man. You know, it's just such, oh, man, smug, you know, just constipated look on his face. Ugh, God. And then this lady, I think she may be a fascist. This lady's gonna go on and retort and go on and talk about like why she supports the platforming
to matter heading into the election, right? And shouldn't those people be able to have the candidate that they would be likely supporting go on a major network and answer questions from who I thought was a probably pretty unfriendly moderator?
See, that right there is why I believe that like this CNN rebrand is, you know, not going to work, and why I feel that it was irresponsible for this town hall to even take place, because there's no way that you can actually bring him on to have a good faith conversation when him and his supporters are bad faith. They're not good faith, especially Trump. Trump's not in not good faith at all. He's not going to tell the truth about anything. And he's not going to be open and honest about anything. So that's why I feel that it was irresponsible, because no matter what you did, all you're going to do is give him a platform to speak and tell lies, undermine our democracy, and use the CNN banner to legitimize all of his lies. Unimpeachable lies. And then like when you try to push back, when you try to say that actually, no, that's incorrect, it's, oh, well, actually, the moderator was just like such a bitch. I mean, she was just so confrontational and antagonistic. when all it literally takes is, to try to like intervene, to try to like, get a question answered or to fact check, So that's why I say it's irresponsible, because no matter what, all you're doing is just continuing to legitimize. She said it, right? Like, why can't Trump supporters get like a major, their president, like their candidate? Why can't they get like a platform on a major news network? Well, I'm sorry, but this guy has been on major news platforms for a very long time. Like he's been on Fox News. He's been on CNN before. So I don't understand. Like, we're acting as if this guy is like been completely, like he's been sent to some prison in Siberia somewhere. Like, no, this dude is like, he's around.
I mean, I just think that AOC's criticism in particular was pretty absurd. The idea that by interviewing someone, you're creating news or becoming part of the news. If that were the case, no journalist could ever interview anybody because...
No, she's actually quote tweeting exactly what was said, what Brian Stelter reported upon, which was, I guess it would have leaked internally, what Chris Light said. He said, quote, that like, we've made news. She made news. We're making news. That's what she was referring to. So no, she's not referring to anytime anyone interviews anyone at any point. This lady's so dishonest.
Inevitably, when you're asking a controversial figure questions and trying to push back and fact check, you're going to become part of the situation there. To me, this is a rejection of basic journalism. The idea that you can't talk to or give a platform to one of the most popular and also likely to be the Republican nominee politicians in the country.
Yeah, I don't think it's so much that he was given a platform. I think most people are upset about his comments. For me, when I think about him having a platform and having a whole town hall devoted to him, I think that's fine. I think people should hear from folks running for office. I do believe that mainstream media does a bad job making that even across popular candidates. Bernie Sanders had plenty of town halls, very few of which were given, primetime slots on major news networks. So it has to be even across the board. But I agree that people have a right to hear from the candidates running.
Amber, what do you...
It's also important to understand, again, that we're not in the news cycle yet, like in the election cycle, right? Like, generally, these things happen, like politicians will have town halls when, like, the actual election cycle happens, But again, like, this was put together for ratings. This wasn't put together for some sort of high-minded journalistic integrity.
What do you think about his performance at the debate? I tried to make the case yesterday, and Brianna totally disagreed with me. I thought he didn't do a good job. Like, he talks too much, in my view, about the 2020 election and how he perceives that he was wronged. He talks too much about January 6th and how it wasn't his fault and the people there are patriots. I know Caitlin Collins started with those questions, but what I think he should do is just pivot, just like move on as quickly as you can. Talk about your agenda, your...
What? And this is exactly why, again, this was irresponsible. Because if he's not going to answer the questions, if he's going to agree to something, and then like a town hall where all questions are on the table, and then he pivots away from difficult questions, then what's the point of even bringing him on? Right? Isn't a part of journalism asking powerful people, holding people to account, powerful people? And that includes fact-checking people. That includes asking difficult questions. What this guy, the fashy guy with the rimmed glasses, what he's talking about is he's talking about wanting to make Trump look better and that he's upset because the whole like January 6th and like his rhetoric about the election being stolen in 2020 makes him look bad. Well, I'm sorry, but that needs to be asked, and that should be asked first, because Donald Trump can't shut the hell up about it. That's his entire thing. Whenever he opens his mouth, whenever he types on Truth Social, whenever he gets a microphone in front of his face, it's the election was stolen, the election was rigged, I'm the rightful president, Biden cheated, they threw away ballots. So why in the world then now would you have Donald Trump in a town hall and you ask him about like, okay, do you really believe that the election was stolen? And that, oh, well, actually, I should pivot to like, I don't know, like the economy or something that makes my guy look the best. This is why, again, why CNN is getting criticism and getting pushback. You know, it's funny that him and the dumpy lady, that was just talking before, that they went on and talked about like journalistic integrity, right? Hey guys, isn't it crazy? Like we should be able to talk about ideas and talk about anyone ideas should be platformed. Especially someone who's running for president. Why not? I mean, this is so dumb. Well, part of journalistic integrity is being able to ask difficult questions to powerful people and to fact check, and to hold people accountable. That lady before, the one that was speaking, the fashy lady to the right, she was talking about like the moderator being confrontational. Like, what does that mean? She was talking about her being confrontational. All she was doing was trying to fact check Donald Trump. So again, these people, them being conservative, all they wanted was that Donald Trump can get up there and like talk without being interrupted or challenged. Which again, this is why people are like, why bring him on? We know where he stands. Why bring him on? You challenge him, his supporters are going to cry and say that he was handled, he was treated unfairly. You try to interrupt him to get him back on track. He's going to interrupt you and get off on a tangent. Have you listened to Donald Trump, by the way? He goes on tangents all the time. So now we're saying that, oh, well, actually, if Donald Trump is asked a question, a legitimate question, something that he continuously brings up on and on and on for the past 3 years, he won't shut the fuck up about it. Oh no, he shouldn't concentrate on that. He shouldn't answer that question. Actually the moderator that asked it shouldn't have even asked that question. He should just pivot and talk about something else.
Vision for what you're going to do in 2024. Other people in the Republican fold do that. Like I was watching the panel afterward. Byron Donalds was asked those same questions, and he moves on quickly and talks about immigration, the economy, etc. Donald Trump never moves on because he's obsessed with it, and I think that he's like sabotaging himself because of that. But am I wrong?
No, I mean, I think he would do better to try to have some kind of forward-facing agenda, but the reality is that entire town hall was playing the hits, right? He was hitting on all of those old jokes and talking points that are crowd pleasers, attacking Caitlyn.
Oh, so wait a second. I thought that it was like Donald, hey guys, listen, we don't know where Donald Trump stands. We should give him a platform. Hey guys, we should give Donald Trump a platform because hey, we shouldn't cancel anyone. We shouldn't keep people we shouldn't deplatform anyone. Oh, so he played to the old hits. So you mean that every single Trump rally, every single Trump speech is all the same? Okay. I agree.
Collins for being a nasty person. I mean, and the crowd loved it, right? They reacted, they laughed, they cheered, because the reality, too, is that as much as people say that they don't like Trump's personality, they like his policies, but not his tweets, the personality is definitely part of it.
What? Does anyone ever say that, like, people like Donald Trump's? I mean, I feel like tons of people, he's a cult of personality. I feel like he's described that way a lot. That people like people who like him, like his personality. And yeah, no shit. It was a room full of Trump voters. They said it in the beginning of the town hall. These are all New Hampshire primary voters that are going to vote for Trump. They were all Republicans. Yes, they're going to laugh. Oh, nasty woman. Haha. They're going to, yes, they're all Trump supporters. She's so dishonest. Oh my God. Oh yeah, dude. Like people say that like Donald, people don't like Donald Trump's personality, but yeah, that's called the vast majority of like Americans. This is why one of the criticisms, you have a guy who's up there being not challenged very well in a platform that's advantageous to continue to perpetrate his lies. All the while, you have people in the audience, all of his supporters, laughing and giggling and clapping, giving the optical illusion that he's actually making a point or that he's like crushing it when he's like a senile old man.
I think that people try to tell themselves that they don't like the bombastic nature of Trump. They don't like how funny he can be. But that really goes away when you realize that
he was in a room full of his supporters.
That Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has many of the same policies, but doesn't have the same charisma that Trump has and is not doing as well in the polls.
Jessica, do you think this is going to be characteristic of the commentary we're going to have to endure?
Isn't that something, by the way, that the guy, the dawdling, like, let's go Brandon, the guy who has like no charisma, bro, lost, beat the guy, with all of this like charisma and like all this juju, beat him by like what, 7 million votes, 7 million votes. Isn't that something? A guy that, people make fun of, that he can't even string a sentence together. He doesn't even know where he is. Beat Donald Trump. Beat his ass. So, I wonder like how like amongst the population, obviously amongst the general population, all of his antics weren't as funny and entertaining as like this Nazi chick is leading you to believe.
For the next 2 years, he's going to be running. The media is going to be covering him, and then other like Democrats and liberals and progressives are going to be saying, "How dare you like cover him?" or "How dare you stick a microphone in his face?" Like it's going to be about the platforming, the all of that stuff. I think that's going to make for some very weird criticism of people who are not Trump aligned at all, but who are just trying to do the job of covering the news.
Yeah, unfortunately, Robbie, I do think that that's very possible based on just like.
Nah, yeah, I mean, again, the framing of this is awful. People are concerned about the lies, rightfully so, regarding the election being stolen. These are lies. These are lies that continue to be perpetrated. He was complicit within a coup attempt. And, he should be in prison. He should be charged with sedition. And in any sane world with a competent Democratic Party, he would be in handcuffs in prison, not giving town halls in front of his audience so they can clap like seals when he says 80 million things that are incorrect, that can easily be Googled. So I think I've gotten enough information. I've squeezed enough from this stone. So I'm just just going to end it.